Good morning. It's the start of a beautiful day. Or start your day right with a healthy dose of news, fun, and inspiration. Join us on VOP this morning for the latest news, trending topics, and uplifting stories to set your day on the right vibe. From news and current events to lifestyle and entertainment, you are covered. Showing from 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on VOP TV. VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
It's a beautiful Thursday morning, and you're welcome to VOP this morning on Voice of the People Television. I am Fina Okechukwu.
All right, and I'm Moses Humphrey, welcoming you on board as well. We're looking at a few things this morning. It's Thursday, the 24th day in the month of October. President Tinubu sacks 5 ministers, makes 7 fresh nominations. Okay, we'll look at this, we'll break it down. Those that have, 10 were reshuffled. So we'll look at all of this in the course of the program. Stay with us.
And I am Chukwuma Okoro. Good morning and thanks for joining us. Nigerians react as President Tinubu denies speculation on the appointment of Reno Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode into his cabinet.
And this is coming 429 days, and he has to do the reshuffling and the rage again. Anyway, these are the major topic of conversation this morning, but we also have interesting trending stories. But before we proceed, kindly click on the subscription button. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV, and on other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. When I talk about other social media platforms, I mean the Instagram, X.com, TikTok, Facebook, and a whole lot more. And talking about the other trending stories, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike has sparked controversy following a viral video showing him in a tense confrontation with an Abuja estate developer in Lugbe. Wike, visibly upset, accused the developer of land grabbing and attacking his demolition squad. When the developer tried to explain that their properties were legally registered, Wike dismissed them, repeatedly telling them to shut up and walk away in frustration, saying they were disobedient and not worth his time. This situation escalated when one developer attempted to speak further, prompting Wike to return from his SUV and nearly strike the individual. His bodyguards stepped in to defuse the situation, but despite the developer's attempt to clarify their stance, Wike eventually approved most of the property in the area for demolition. And this incident has fueled public outrage, with many questioning Wike's temperament. Dino Melai recently claimed Wike's frustrations are linked to his failed bid for the PDP presidential ticket and his rejection for the vice presidential position also. Nigerians are now speculating how Wike's ego might have played out if he had secured higher political office. Remember, Wike is the governor of FCT because he's the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. And, just yesterday also we heard that he wants to take away beggars from the streets of Abuja. And he also issued a warning to, family members of the beggars, saying if you have a child or a relation on the street of Abuja, please kindly take them off the street, because he's not going to let them beg again anytime. And
sorry,
you may want to say something.
Yes, I want to, not just something. I have a lot.
A lot
to say. First of all, it would be good to clarify that Wike, as FCT minister, it's not the governor of the FCT. He holds that position in trust for the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's what the Constitution says. Clearly, it's not in dispute. What happened yesterday, speaks to how Wike is quite unmindful of his public conduct as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I'm sure people will begin to relate that with what's been going on in Port Harcourt, not just now, but when he was governor of Rivers State. He is very uncivil.
He's a lawyer, I hope you know.
My wife is a lawyer. She's not uncivil.
Can a lawyer be uncivil?
I just said that my wife is a lawyer. She's not uncivil.
Oh, okay.
It speaks to the character of Wike. And I want to ask, peradventure, he didn't go there with a culture of policemen is Wike capable to take on any of those men in a duel, in a fight?
You never can
Look at how he was saying, shut up, shut up. I mean, this is a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's condemnable.
Well, his actions in that video were uncouth, to say the least. But I would not want to believe that he meant to strike or he attempted, he meant to get physical with anybody. If we can,
Moses, that was
I would like for us to watch the video.
He had already gone into his car and stepped back.
It was about, yes.
Said, shut up.
I like to give people the benefits of the doubt. That's the kind of person I am. Well, if we can, let's put that video up. Let's watch it. Yes, his words were not in sync with the position that he occupies, asking people, those that voted you into office, to shut up. That's very, very uncouth. And then I despise, for lack of a better word, the fact that we tend to revere political office holders. We call them father of the nation. In that video, they were calling him sir, sir. Come on, you put him in there. He's supposed to be a public servant. That's where I have a problem. But let's watch the video. Okay, all right. So I do understand that they're trying to get the video. But I guess we'll play it in the course of the program if we get it. I would like to give him the benefit. He made for his car, opened it, and then somebody said something, so he went back. But I'm not sure.
No, they were practically begging.
Yes,
they were practically begging. Sir, please, we have documents. We have title documents. And now when he asked, do you have C of O? They muttered something that was incoherent, and he now came back. I said, no, you don't. This place belongs to the FCT. We understand that. Look, if that place is in contention, if there's a known process of resolution, and not for you to start shouting at developers, Nigerians, that
was wrong. Okay, so yes, let's have the video now.
We have submitted this to the authority. Verify. Approve and say, yes. You have your CFO. This is area council. This is area council. Who told you? That's why you make it. Hey, keep quiet. If you are an illiterate, you're an illiterate. Every land in FCT belongs to the FCT. The only thing you can do, go to court. Yes. We are in court already. But here, we'll take our land. Not if you like, go and carry a cross. And the worst one is go and carry a cross. Who told you we are allowed to? We did not arrest them. We did not arrest anybody. Yes. You know I won't listen to you. You have taken the laws into your hands. No, we never did, sir. We never did, sir. It's a wrong information. It's a wrong information. It's a wrong information. Because I came down to talk to you. I don't need to talk to you. Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. If you don't know what to do, don't bring their guns. No, sir. No, sir. We have no guns.
So there you have it. Well, as you can see, I think the video, there were parts of it chopped off.
Yes.
Maybe to get the 1 minute that is allowed on social media. So some parts of it were chopped up. Yes, telling people to, so hushing people basically, telling them go to court has become a new,
it's a mantra.
Yes.
In our political lexicon, it has become a,
Well, they did say that they are already in court. That attitude was unbecoming of a public servant. It's condemnable. I hope he would tender an apology to Nigerians because he just spoke down on Nigerians. And yes, if when you look at this, you would want to easily see him as a tyrant, and one would wonder if this kind of person attains higher authority, what then would become of the people that he will be ruling over? And I use that word "rule" very loosely.
The Wike I know will tender no apology. He will not.
He has said what he's already, so has he ever apologized?
He's too full of himself, you know. And like I've always said, it would be nice for the president to rein him in, you know, on some of these excesses, because it doesn't speak well about the quality of leadership. We are talking about grooming leadership for the future. And we have people that occupy positions of responsibility come out in such a manner that they don't even serve as role models to the younger ones. So it's quite unbecoming. Like I said earlier, it's very uncivil for a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That issue could have been resolved amicably. Why don't you just invite them over to your office, sit down with them, with documents,
Absolutely.
and say, this is you have here, you don't have yet. So how do we resolve this? And practically not telling people, go to court.
So do you think in the words of Dino Milai that he's frustrated over the fact that he lost out, getting the
I don't care what Dino Milai is saying. I would rather not
even the
go
vice
there.
presidential ticket also.
No, I don't agree with
I
don't agree. It's his person.
All right.
It's his person.
Now, the former Chief of Army Staff, General T.Y. Danjuma, has expressed deep concern over the declining quality of leadership in Nigeria. He urged current public officials to look beyond their self-interest and take immediate action to ensure a better future for generations to come. Danjuma made these remarks during a Katsu visit from members of the League of Northern Democrats, LND, at his residence in Ikoyi, Lagos. He lamented that political leadership in Nigeria is going down and down, particularly emphasizing that the situation is worse in the north. Danjuma called on leaders to rise to the occasion and address the troubling trends. In a statement issued by League of Northern Democrats in Abuja, he advised the group to pursue their vision with determination, acknowledging the challenges posed by corrupt political class that have been wielding significant power and wealth in the country. There's another person in Nigeria, talking about Danjuma now. He's, I would call him another player, a political elite also, even when he happens to be, with the military. Now, he's also saying something in line with what Obasanjo said yesterday or 2 days ago, that Nigerians need to, wake up, embrace peace, love, and shun, bad or corrupt politicians for us.
It's also in line with what we are seeing. It's in line with the actions of Nyesom Wike. It's in line because, we're still talking about political office holders talking down on the people. If you go to the north, when it comes to giving people what they call benefits of democracy or dividends of democracy, or you're trying to give the people palliatives, you see people sit on the floor, and then you see politicians giving them handouts, sometimes like 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira, and then, basically the people have been dehumanized to the point where they seem to have lost value in themselves, and they look up to political office holders who ordinarily, I'm going to say this again, who ordinarily should be servants of the people as their leaders, as their gods. Well, I kind of commend LND, that's League of Northern Democrats. Yeah. I commend their action. I hope we see this in the southeast as well, where Democrats, those that have held political office at some point, or those aspiring, will come together, form a formidable force, and put forward the desires of the people in that region. Some will say this is a bid to take power. Yes, that's what it is. Well, I absolutely think so.
Well, Moses, while you commend the LND, League of Northern Democrats, I would like to ask the question: how much responsibility should people like T.Y. Danjuma take? When you talk about the decline in leadership, this precipitous fall in the quality of leadership. Danjuma happens to be one of the people that played in the political scene, whether it was in the military or civil politics, between 1966, 1967, up until when I think his last public appointment was as a Minister of Defense. Last one was Minister of Defense under either Obasanjo or Jonathan. I think it should be Obasanjo. So how much responsibility should somebody like T.Y. Danjuma take? How much responsibility should Olusegun Obasanjo take? You know, and all those that come out now to pontificate about the decline in the quality of leadership. I mean, these are the people who had Nigeria on a platter of gold, you know, and should have had a succession plan. Did they build successive leaders? They didn't.
Who
Who did they hand over to? You know, so I find it somehow curious that people who failed practically in their own time will be the one to come and do preachments on how we should go. Moses, you always say that maybe they have repented. But I keep asking the question, how much of a responsibility should these elders take for the failure of leadership?
It's more like a clearing call, since maybe they weren't able to put things in place while they were there, and they think this is time for them to, you know, come up
exactly my question. Exactly my question. How much responsibility should they
We'll
take?
agree that things have degenerated. All right, things were not as bad during the time of Obasanjo. Things were not as bad as they are right now. And you know, talk about leadership. Talk about those they handed over to. One of those, I mean, the person in power now has been within the corridors of power for the longest time. Tinubu has been within the corridors of power for the longest time.
It took him 30 years.
If they were there, and the groomed people who turned out this way, who should take that responsibility? That's my question.
I'm not sure.
How much of a responsibility should they take? Danjuma, Obasanjo, Babangida, Husseini, and all of those people that played both in the military and in the civil politics.
Well, I think things just degenerated. Well, you might say yes, they're playing saints right now, but regardless of how you look at it, I want to believe that when you've done something, you've played a role somewhere, and you're watching from the outside, you see clearer how things play out. You can see the errors, and then you can prefer solution because you're watching from the outside.
Moses, that is clearly not in dispute. My simple question is, how much responsibility should they take? Are they trying to make amends now?
Yeah, that's what they're talking. That's what they're talking.
But they should also put some level of blame on themselves.
But Obasanjo have not exonerated himself from the fact.
How saintly they were.
But you know that Obasanjo have never exonerated himself from the fact that Nigeria is not really moving. He also called himself, he also blamed himself. He said, we are not. He has never said you. He said, we are not getting it right. He said, it's high time for us to come together as a nation so that we'll be able to move forward.
I just hope that we can come together as a people, because we need to do that.
I hope too.
And urgently.
I hope so too.
And urgently.
Oh, well, let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll look at the papers. Well, welcome back. Now let's get into the papers now. By the way, so you know, this is just a peep at the papers, at stories that made it to the cover pages of the dailies. At 9 o'clock, we'll be going deeper into analyzing some of these stories. All right, so stay with us again. Join us again at that time. But in the meantime, from the Punch newspaper, we have these headlines. Banner headline reads, private sector, opposition split as Tinubu reshuffles cabinet. Subriders, OPS backs Tinubu as opposition. CSOs, Nigerians demand sacking of more underperforming ministers. President fires 5, appoints 7, reassigns 10 as FG merges. As FG merges, scraps ministries. All right. The window headlines, Dangote refinery begins direct petrol sale to marketers. I'm going to write today's date down, as they say, begins. So they won't come back in November to say Dangote is yet to. Okay. Well, 12 states delay 30,000 naira minimum wage for teachers. Report, not even at this time. I'm sorry. Well, diaspora Nigerians get non-resident BVN platform, December. Cardoso. Makinde rally support for Ajayi. Says election will shock APC. Ayedatiwa woos voters, declares PDP umbrella finally torn. Interested politicians. And then there you have the picture of some of the ministers that have been proposed. Some names of individuals that have been nominated for ministerial appointments. You have Bianca Ojukwu, you have Dr. Nantawe Yikwata, you have Muhammad Dingyadi, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Idi Mukhtar Maiha, Yusuf Atta, Suwaiba Ahmed. All right. And then also you have those that have been shown the way out. Uju Kennedy Ohanenye, Lola Ade John, Jamila Abu Ibrahim, Tahiru Mamin, and Abdulaziz Gwazo. All right. Underneath that one, FEC, that's Federal Executive Council, OK's $618 million loan for fighter jets, ammunition. Canadian lady jailed 11 years for importing 35.20 kilogram of cannabis. Onyo Dam. Ogun communities reject Abiodu's relocation advisory. These are the headlines from the Punch newspaper.
And from Punch, we move over to the Vanguard newspaper that has a banner headline to be Tinubu fires 6 ministers, hires 7 new ones in cabinet regime. The story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper, and the writers to that bold headline story is Nigeria names Bianca Ojukwu 6 new ministers, redeploys 10, appoints Shehu Diko, chairman National Sports Commission. Buhari's ex-minister takes over Labour. SGFH, HOS working on merger of ministries. And at the window headlines, IMF wants Nigeria to focus more on increasing tax revenue. The story is on page 20. I'll take that again for clarity's sake. IMF, International Monetary Fund, wants Nigeria to focus more on increasing tax revenue. Reps small increase in derivation fund from 13% to 50%. Climate change. Lagos is sinking. Deputy Governor Hamzat raises alarm. Obasanjo, Danjuma decried dwindling quality of leadership in Nigeria. The story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. And we have a pictorial. The major pictorial is about pensioners that are protesting in Abuja. And they are talking about how their money has not been paid and how they also need it to be increased too. We have some of them sitting on the ground with their placards. These are Nigerians or people who have paid.
They've served the nation.
Served the nation, you know. And then beside that pictorial, diaspora Nigerians to get BVN. This is coming from Cardoso, the governor of Central Bank. FG withdraws money laundering charge against Binance official Gambrayan. I'll tell it again. FG withdraws money laundering charges against Binance official Gambrayan. The story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. My breast hurting. Bobby Risky.
I'm sorry.
All right, and with that, we begin to another headline. We have mixed reaction as FG scraps Niger Delta Ministry. Right as to that headline, it was renamed, not scrapped. That is coming from FG. We won't allow it. FG using South money to develop other commissions. That is coming from Clark. All communities hailed Tinubu's decision. It is ill-informed Niger Delta activist Kennedy. The story around that is on page 26 of the Vanguard newspaper. Edo APC Transition Committee raises false alarm over documents. That is coming from government. Right after that story, beg your pardon. It's false, says APC Committee. FG gives Julius Berger 7 days ultimatum over Abuja Kaduna Road project. And now we have the sports news on page 30. Tinubu scraps sports ministry, appoints Diko, NSC chairman. And the last but not the least of the headlines that made it to the cover page of the Vanguard newspaper is Mr. and Mrs. A cartoon where the man says the women are strange. They carry handbags, shoulder bags, clutch, and purse at the same time. For what? I don't know. And then in response, the woman says, why do men have breast pockets, side pockets, and trouser pockets in one dress? Some even have pockets in their boxers. And those are the headlines that made it to the cover page of the Vanguard newspaper.
And now from the Vanguard, we move over to Daily Trust with the banner headline. Tinubu sacks 6 ministers, appoints 7 others with sub-riders, reassigns portfolios to 10. Cabinet still over-bloated, according to CSOs. Lean government workforce will cut waste, ex-permanent secretary. Will resist attempt to scrap Niger Delta ministry. And the window headlines read, FG gives Julius Berger ultimatum on Abuja-Kaduna-Kano road. Amidst tariff hike demand, consumers decry fast data depletion, poor connectivity. Diphtheria kills 1,191 in 17 months. That's according to the NCDC. Below the major headline, you have pictures of newly appointed ministers. And there's another headline, Gigawatt tanker explosion. We lost 50 relatives. And below that, you have federal government withdraws money laundering charges against Binance executive. External reserves hit $40 billion as Nigeria targets $1 billion monthly inflow. And the last but not the least, Emir Sanusi to turban eldest son, Chiroman Kaduna. And that's all from the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, so let's go to the Guardian newspaper now. Cautious optimism over Tinubu's reshuffled cabinet changes. And then you have the picture of those nominated and those reshuffled right there. NUC, NCDMB, others move to commercialize research and capital flight. Flood displaced 5 million Nigerians in 10 years. IMF tasks Nigeria, other African governments on fiscal reform, e-governance. Allow PDP brief. Ologbodinyo tells Atiku, Wike, diphtheria killed 1,191 persons in 17 months, says NCDC. NBS says 85.2% of households use estimated billing. FG receives 350,000 applications. Disburses 10 billion naira in student loan. All right, these are the headlines from the Guardian newspaper, and that's pretty much how far we can go this morning talking about newspaper headlines. Don't forget, join us again at 9 for newspaper review. In the meantime, Tinubu sags 5 ministers, makes 7 fresh nominations. Chief Edwin Clark condemns the scrapping of the Niger Delta Affairs Ministry. And we also saw jubilation at the Ministry of Women Affairs as Uju Kennedy Ohanenye was removed. All of this and more in the course of the program. Join us again.
From the views on the street
we go to bed empty hunger
to the blaring horns of a hustling city, the loudest voices of the common man got a medium to be heard.
This particular administration, they were coming unprepared.
It's not a bad thing to renovate the president's lawn.
Through top-notch programming, unbiased reportage of news, sports, business, entertainment, and cultural documentaries, Voice of the People 90.3 FM became a symbol for 21st century media. And now, a new baby is born. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV, youthful, full of vigor and penchant for excellence in the continent's media space, exposing the wrongs, applauding the rights, dissecting the news without fear or favor, through factual and accurate stories and contents.
Corruption kills 3 things and makes a society.
Representing the interests of the people and giving them a voice. Voice of the People TV is here to stay towards building a fair society. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television, truly a voice for the people.
Thank you for staying with us. It's still VOP this morning. President Bola Tinubu has dismissed 5 ministers and appointed 7 new ones in a major cabinet reshuffle aimed at boosting his administration's capacity to fulfill promises to Nigerians. The announcement was made by Bayo Ononuga, Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, during a press briefing at the Federal Executive Council meeting. The sacked ministers include Uju Kennedy Ohanene, Minister of Women Affairs, Lola Adejon, Minister of Tourism, Professor Tahiru Maman, Minister of Education, Abdullahi Gwarzo, Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, and Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Minister of Youth Development. 7 new ministers have also been appointed, pending Senate confirmation. And the people that were appointed include Mrs. Bianca Odinaka Odemego Ojukwu as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Nitawe Yadwatda as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Muhammadu Dangayedi as Minister of Labor and Employment, and Dr. Jumoke Oduwole as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Others are Idi Meya, Minister of Livestock Development, Honorable Yusuf Atta, Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, and Dr. Waiba Ahmad, Minister of State for Education. In the related development, jubilant scenes were observed at the Ministry of Women Affairs following the removal of Uju Kennedy Ohanene. A video shared on social media platforms showed employees dancing and celebrating her dismissal, with chants of "finally" echoing through the corridors. Meanwhile, former Federal Commissioners for Information and South leader Chief Edwin Clark has criticized President Tinubu for scrapping the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. And he said in Abuja, Clark condemned the move, accusing the government of redirecting funds meant for the South region to support development commissions in other geopolitical zones. This particular statement, the federal government also said no to it. They didn't scrap it. All they did actually is to rename it and to also, refurbish or touch it a little so that it can accommodate all the people who are part of the oil-producing communities. And with us in the studio this morning to help make sense of this topic is Mr. Dele Fanimo, a journalist, a social and political critic, and also journalist virtually is Mr. Isiaka Bademosi, who is a public affairs analyst and an SDG advocate. Good morning, Mr. Dele Fanimo.
Good morning.
Good to have you in today's.
Always my pleasure.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Isiaka Bademosi.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and good morning to the panel in the studio.
Thank you so much for being part of the show. All right, I would like to start off with you, Mr. Isiaka Bademose. What do you really make of the rejigging, the reshuffling? It's more like some other ministries were kind of merged or pulled out. What do you really make of this move by the president after 469 days?
Okay, well, I think it's something that we've been that has been in the rumor mill for quite some time, and for somebody like me, I was expecting much more than this, but I think it's just something done for the sake of maybe having Nigerians have something to chew on, because those that were replaced and those that have been brought in, I am not looking at any dramatic change or changes that has really happened in the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as it is right now, or even with the people that are coming in. So I expect some more. The margin of some ministry for me made some sense, in the sense that the Ministry of Sports, the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, and creative economy, I think, yes, those ones made some sense, but I think that's just a flash in the pan. I think there is a need for much more. The government needs some much more drastic approach to redirecting government and governance for me.
All right, then. Thank you very, very much for that introduction to your thoughts there on the rejigging of the cabinet. Now, let me come to our studio guest, Dele Fanimo, a VOP in-house analyst and reporter. Now, we've been talking about this. This has been ongoing for some time. Will the president rejig? Will he not rejig? Who will go? Who will stay? Will ministries be collapsed? But does this look like a collapsing of ministries? I mean, just a few, and then more names have been mentioned. If he's letting go of, is it 5 or 6? And pretty much six, because Beta Edu is out. There's somebody else occupying that ministry now, Ministry of Human Affairs. Yes. So, are we going to see? Is this cutting down on the cost of governance, which is what Nigerians have been expecting? Good. Your thoughts, please. I don't want to push the question too far.
What happened yesterday was just like a tokenism compared to expectations of Nigerians.
Okay.
When he was banding this idea of rejigging his cabinet, dropping those who are not underperforming, and those he feels that are not really attuned with his vision of the renewed hope, one expected a radical departure from what used to be. But when the announcement came yesterday, I was just wondering, I said, the Orosanye report would have been the Bible for this exercise. And if you look through the Orosanye report, you will know that duplication of functions had really bedeviled the Federal Executive Council. And it's just like maybe because he needed to go in line with the constitution that says that at least one minister must emerge from a state. Otherwise, the portfolios are too unwieldy. Some ministry that are really not supposed to be ministry, probably a commission or a corporation or whatever, has been elevated to ministry level to the extent that when you have too many cooks,
spoils the
broth. You know? So for me, I have not seen anything radical about this change.
Mr. Fanimo, you said it's a tokenism, kind of.
Yes.
You know, and so does it look like those that were returned, that the president passed a vote of confidence on their performance?
So.
Okay, and so in specific, is it possible that you mentioned the ministers that you expected would be shoved aside and all of that? Those that were returned?
For me, let's start from ministries. Culture, youth should have been one ministry, and national orientation.
Well, tourism and culture now have emerged into one.
That, I said, would have been one ministry.
Okay.
Until now, there was a tourism ministry, there was culture ministry. And if you look at these two ministries, their functions overlap. You understand? And I still can't understand this livestock ministry. When you have Ministry of Agriculture, agriculture should be all embracing. You have livestock. So maybe some people that are rearing pigs should have a Ministry of Piggery. You know, things like that. It shouldn't be. Livestock should be under the Ministry of Agriculture.
No, I was talking in terms of those that were returned, not about the ministries.
No, I'm just trying to say,
okay.
I may not want to go into specifics about individuals.
Okay.
You understand?
All right.
But I am just telling you that for now, there are some ministries that shouldn't go beyond commission or even agency.
Well, you know, the thing is, some Nigerians have mooted that Minister of Energy, what's his name now?
Adelabu.
Minister of Power.
Minister of Power, thank you very much.
Adelabu.
Adelabu should be excused because of, one, the frequent collapse of the grid and a few other things in the ministry. Do you think that's a fair assessment? But he's been retained.
I know. Let me also say that it does occur to me yesterday night that maybe it's a phased process.
Okay.
That maybe
there might be another
one.
announcement.
Because for me, you see, the power ministry is bedeviled with so many encumbrances that it takes a magical minister to be able to surmount all those. Now, let me tell you, the best power minister we would have had in this country that would have faced our energy problem was Professor Bath Energy. When Bath Energy was there, power sector was coasting home. But because vested interest wanted a pie in the allocation of discos and gencos, they walked through that man, and unfortunately, because of where he was coming from, this was a man that managed American Electricity Corporation at a point. And his power plant is still functioning till today. But because of that vested interest, and because they want to corner that particular subsector of the energy mix, I mean the generating companies and distribution companies, they needed to shove him aside. And so he was accused of abuse of office. And he was never tried to the extent of finding him guilty before he was shoved off the radar. Okay. And those people that were angling for these discos and gencos were able to muzzle their way into that sector.
Okay.
And the result is what we have today.
Okay, quite an unfortunate one.
So, for me, Adelabu inherited a comatose sector that is bedeviled by the kebab.
Okay.
So
some Nigerians would
functionality in that sector is still a function of the redirection of that sector. Not allowing this cabal, who don't even have, some of them don't even have the technical capability to function in that sector. But they are holding on because they have vested interest and they have linked to the powers that be.
Looks like if some people will disagree with you, because I'm not sure there's any ministry, any sector that is not bedeviled with one kind of encumbrance or the other. But that said, let's bring in Mr. Badamosi again. Mr. Badamosi, good morning once again. Hello, Mr. Badamosi, I would like for you to help us understand why the Ministry of Defense was left intact, especially given the increasing level of insecurity across the country. We have a Minister of Defense who is, Nigerians have said, is neither here nor there, and we have a Minister of State for Defense who is been alleged to have been a sponsor of terrorists when he was governor of his state. That's Zamfara State, to be very specific. And in the cabinet reshuffle, nothing happened, nobody was removed. And is it like some kind of vote of confidence on the Ministry of Defense?
Okay, the Ministry of Defense specifically is a very unique ministry. Unique in the sense that it's one of the front runner in terms of you call it the A ministries. You see, what happens in the Ministry of Defense, for me, is not a direct function of the minister. It's not necessarily a direct function of the minister. It's a direct function of the service chiefs and the permanent secretary in the ministry. You could have anybody as Minister of Defense and you might not have results. But if you have the right people as service chiefs and they know what they are doing, and the permanent secretary too understands what exactly his duties are and the limit of what he can do and what he should not do, then the ministry will function. Now, you see the people who are that's Alhaji Bagudu, who is Minister of Defense right now, and the former governor of Zamfara State, both of them are politicians, and both of them, for me, do not have any idea or any military or intelligence background that would have been, we would have said maybe is enough for them to be in that position. So it's obvious that they were appointed to that position based on political exigencies, not because of what they bring to the table per se. So for me, I think they are still serving the political purpose of the paymaster. So that's why they still retain there, not necessarily because of what they have done or what they are going to bring to the table.
That brings me to another question now, Mr. Isiaka. A lot of Nigerians are saying that the issue of appointing ministers, should be taken off, given the fact that most of the time we see round squares and round pegs being fixed in square, holes. And they are saying, no, it's high time we start voting in people who are competent enough to man all this position instead of appointing them. Do you also share that line of thought?
Well, the thing is this, you see, the way our constitution is framed is such that the president has the prerogative of identifying who and who he wants to work with. Yes, for you to have results, for you to get the job done, you need to have people who have the requisite experience, the track record of performance, and all of that to put in position. But beyond that, I would want to say, just like Mr. Fanimo mentioned earlier, you see, beyond that, people, the political space is quite a challenging terrain. You cannot, based on maybe your expertise in a particular field, say you function effectively as a political appointee, as a minister. No. If you look at our trajectory in the past, you see that most of the people who have failed, who have been compromised and said to be involved in some sort of corruption or other, are those that have been maybe experts in their field, professors and the rest. And because they do not understand the political terrain, because they do not understand the civil service, they do not understand how government functions and what are the games that are being played, they go in there and they want to assert themselves based on their expertise. And at the end of the day, it fails woefully. And that was exactly what happens to Professor Batunaji, like Mr. Fanimo has said. So for me, I think you need to combine a lot of these things. You must have the expertise and you must have the political understanding and exposure. You must know what the terrain is all about. Nigeria is a complex society. If you do not understand what the diverse nature of Nigeria is and you are appointed to a national position, you're going to fail woefully. And that is what we see in some of these people who are experts in their fields and they can't just function when they get to position.
All right, then, let me, I'm going to stay with you a little on this one, but allow me take a bit of time, reel out some of these, the ministers that were reshuffled and those that have been named and the ministries that they are to occupy when the Senate approves them. So let's go through this list of 10 that have been reshuffled. All right, and then you'll tell me if you think they will perform better where they are, and juxtaposed with where they are coming from. Honorable Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, currently still is the Minister of State Education, but has been moved to the Minister of State Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu. Dr. Marufu Olatunji Alausa, Minister of State Health, now Minister of Education. Barrister Bello Mohammed Goronyo, Minister of State, Water Resources and Sanitation, now Minister of State Works. Seems like almost the same thing, but okay. Honorable Abubakar Eshiokbetha Momo, Minister of Niger Delta Development, now Minister of Regional Development. And then we have Uba Maigiri Amadu, Minister of State, Steel Development, now Minister of State Regional Development as well. Yes, okay. And then we have Dr. Doris Azoka Anite, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. She's been moved to the Ministry of she's now Minister of State Finance. Senator John Omayano, Minister of Sports Development, now Minister of State Trade and Investment, Industry in bracket. Iman Sulaiman Ibrahim, Minister of State Police Affairs, now Minister of Women Affairs. Ayodele Olawande, Minister of State for Youth Development, now Minister for Youth Development. And then we have Dr. Salako Isiaq Adekunle Adeboye, Minister of State Environment, now Minister of State Health. Now, give me a little more time. Now, let's look at those that have been nominated as well. We'll break it down. I hope you will remember, the names that have been mentioned. I just hope you do. Now, Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu, those nominated now, she's been looked at for the position of Minister of State Foreign Affairs. Nantawe Yilwatda, considered for the position of Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, a ministry that was formerly occupied by Betta Edu, who has long been suspended. Finally, we can't say now that she's been shown the way out. But activities in that ministry, have they been sorted out? Well, Jumoke Oduwole as Minister of Industry, Maigeri Dingyadi as Minister of Labor and Employment, and Idi Maiha, I beg your pardon, as Minister for the newly created Livestock Development Ministry. And then we have Yusuf Atta, Minister of State Housing and Urban Development. And lastly, Suwaiba Ahmed, Minister of State Education. You can react freely to anyone, all right? I'm not picking them, I'm not picking and choosing. Just react to anyone. Your assessment, those that have been rejected and those that have been nominated.
Okay, I would want to say that those that have been rejected, all of those names, the 10 of them you reeled out, for me, have been in obscurity for the past 1 year or thereabout. You hardly hear much about them, except for maybe the Minister of Sport. And the Minister of Sport, nothing really tangible did we get during his tenure, except for the fact that we squandered 25 billion naira for the Olympics and then nothing to show for it. So I think all of those that have been rejected needs to be, yes, they should be moved around. Maybe that will make them function. Maybe they were a square peg in round hole, and maybe now they will perform better. But I only hope that we do not take a longer time for us to know whether they are functioning or not, so they could be taken out. But talking about those that are coming in, I think the bringing in of Bianca Ojukwu, for me, is a very good move. And
you don't think it's political?
The area she's...
You don't think it's politically motivated?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Don't you think it's politically motivated? Because some are saying that it seems aimed at the heart of the eastern part of Nigeria, especially Anambra State.
Yes, there definitely are political reasons, political undertone in that appointment. Very strong one. Dim Ojumeko-Ojukwu is a larger-than-life figure in the southeast and in Nigeria, as it were. His father used to be a very wealthy businessman in this country. So it's a name that is entrenched in our political system. So when you bring such a name into this, and besides, Bianca is also from a family of the Onus, who are also very well respected. And Anambra State haven't been a state of that has been dominated by ABGA for a very long while. It might also be a move to see how to penetrate into Anambra State. It could also be, it is also for me, a move towards getting that acceptance internationally for the country. Because if you have a Bianca Ojukwu as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, then you have a representation of the country by maybe people who you might see some level of agitations there and there, but you can identify that, no, we have somebody like this as the minister, and that name resonates with virtually everybody within the country and even outside this country. So I think our appointment is a very good one. I think, and I have a conviction that she's going to perform. I hope that maybe she will be stepped up to a frontline minister with time. Besides her, I think the other ones we wait to see. I'm particularly worried, just like Mr. Fanimo mentioned, that about the livestock ministry. For me, I do not see a need for it. I think it's meant maybe to appease, maybe that's the way we do our politics here, most unfortunately, maybe to appease some powers that be. But I think it's going to backfire, and because it has never worked. Such things have never worked. If we have a situation where there is a problem on the ground, we don't throw money and appointments and stuff like that to such problems. We face the problem headlong, and then we solve it.
All right.
That is how we should go about it.
And now I would like to come to you, Mr. Fanimo, and that is about the merging of Niger Delta Ministry. Now it's Ministry of Regional Development, where we have Edwin Clark and his statement. He said he is not happy with that particular arrangement, saying that the money from the South is what the federal government is looking at or targeting to use to develop other regions. What do you really make of that statement by Edwin Clark?
You see, sometimes when I talk about the problem of Nigeria being the constitution of this country, people tend to misconstrue my position. Let me tell you, as long as we have that constitution that gives opportunities to people that are not willing to think out of the box, where you have quota system, where you have, which other one is it now? That quota system and...
ELDS, educational disadvantage, federal character.
Federal character, yes. Then you have all of this. I'm sure our brothers up there wouldn't have allowed this to happen if they have the advantage over us here. For instance, what is Northeast Development Commission bringing to the table in this arrangement? What will Northwest Development Commission bring to the table in this arrangement? This is a country that is so lopsided that value-added tax, 60% to 70% of value-added tax is made in Lagos. And yet, what Lagos State gets is less than 5% of this money. Whereas some states in the north, like Kano that has 44 local governments, get a larger chunk, yet they destroy beverages, alcohol there, which is one of the surest way of making this VAT money. So, in this case, now that we have collapsed these regional establishments, and then you'll be surprised that to placate a section of the country, somebody that is from the north will be the minister in this. And at the end of the day, people will now be agitating for equity.
Don't you think that the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and the NDDC was simply a duplication of duties?
It was.
So?
But you know that it was as a result of exigency that Niger Delta Development Commission was created, NDDC. But later on, they saw that there are discoveries in other regions beyond the Niger Delta, places like Abia, places like Imo, where they discovered oil later on, and lately Ogun, and possibly Lagos soon. Ondo is also there. So they feel that maybe there was this basin in the north, Chad Basin, where they just discovered oil. So maybe in the wisdom of government, they felt that, okay, let's have a ministry that will superintend over these areas because of latest discoveries. But right now, it is needless to have that ministry. Because maybe they would have to change that name from Niger Delta Ministry to maybe making it like oil producing, like Ompadec then.
Wouldn't it be another duplication?
No, Niger Delta Development Commission can give way to oil producing.
Because I think there's another entity that is supposed to supervise the NDDC, Southeast Development Commission, Southwest Development Commission, Northeast Development Commission, and all of those commissions.
What we are saying is the letters of this, the establishment of this commission was for regions to use resources available in their regions to develop comparatively and competitively. If that is the reason behind it, then we don't need a ministry that will superintend over. Because the danger in this is, the moment there is a ministry superintending over these commissions, it becomes civil service thing that everybody will now be looking at whatever comes to the table to be shared again.
Exactly how the...
You understand? But in the evolution of Nigeria, post-independence, we had regions that were autonomous and not dependent on federal government.
Regions, which Obasanjo now come up to say that is what is causing the issue we're having in Nigeria, because it's more like having 3 nations in one nation. Because of how the Igbos, the Hausas, the Yorubas had to go to their own region to develop, to create, or to look for something that they have, in larger quantity to bring out how they will, get the revenue to man their activities. And that.
See, our major problem in this country is that particular issue. Let's not bring it down to Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba. We're talking about comparative advantage in regions. Where is coal today in the southeast?
It's in Enugu State.
No, I said, where is it in the equation of non-oil export?
Yeah.
Where is cocoa today in the southwest in the equation of non-oil exports? Where is groundnut pyramid today? Most of these commodities were available in abundance, and these were the things they used in developing these regions. Let's make federal government less attractive so that people will not be killing themselves. They want to be president, they want to be president. Imagine if Southeast, with the technological know-how coming from that state, allowed to develop at its own pace. By now, we will be having a replication of China in Nigeria. Allow Southwest to develop along the God's given endowment. Today, we will have a Singapore in Southwest. Allow the Northerners to produce food. Let them export. Let them do whatever they can to make sure that that region develops. Then you bring a percentage of what you derive in your own backyard to the center. Then the presidency becomes less attractive. And Nigerians would develop because I will see you, if you are from Hausa, I see you as an Igbo man, and I'm a Yoruba man. I will see us competing the way we should compete.
Mr. Fanimo, let's come back to the issue of the Niger...
We're talking about economical development.
Let's come back to
and that is the heart of what we have in Nigeria
Let's
today,
come back to the issue of the Niger Delta ministries that was scrapped. And Edwin Clark is complaining. Now, the ministry was scrapped, but there's a supervising entity for all the regional development commissions that have been assented to by the president and former presidents, like the NDDC and all of that. The issue is this. Do you agree or disagree with Edwin Clark?
On this premise, I agree with him.
That it should be returned?
It should be returned.
But you also agree that it was a mere duplication. If you have the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and you have NDDC that has filtered funds...
Can't this commission stand on its own?
So what was the Ministry of Niger Delta doing? What were they doing? Can you point to anything that they have done, any impact they have made for the past how many years it's been in existence?
Let them scrap that ministry completely, Ministry of Niger Delta, because it's a duplication of function of NDDC.
So you disagree with Clark?
Wait, I said Clark is talking about putting those the NDDC under a ministry. No. That is
what his contention is that why do you have to scrap the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs?
You see, you may not get him right. Maybe he was quoted out of context. What that man is saying is that, please, don't put NDDC under a national body.
No, I think what he was saying is the scrapping of the
Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs.
He was concerned about the scrapping of the
for me, I would have gone with saying that, please, allow NDDC to remain. Let the various regional commissions remain. Okay. And then let us develop at each other's pace,
All right.
and then remove that exclusive list matters from the constitution that will allow my state, Ondo State, to tap its abundant bitumen for the benefit of Ondo people.
All right then. Let's come back to Isiaka Gbadamosi. I hope you're still with us, just to ensure that you're still with us.
Yes, I am.
All right, great. So let's X-ray some of one of the ministers who was taken out as Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy Ohanenye. There is a video I'd like us to play right now. This is a video purportedly from her ministry's office when she was when the news broke. We saw people jubilating, saying, finally, thanking God for the fact that she was, yes, there you have the video. They're busting balloons and jubilant, if you ask me, that the minister, Uju Kennedy, well, let's take a listen to them. Video I saw where they were moving along the corridor, people jubilating. Well, this is one of them. Now, we also saw a similar thing when Betta Edu was suspended. There was jubilation as well at the Humanitarian Ministry's office. Why do you think this is so? Is it that the civil servants that work with them are they too hard on the people? Is it because of an attitude? Is it an attitudinal problem? Or is it that people are just lackadaisical and want an easy way out?
Okay. If you would allow me, I would want to also maybe say something about that video before I go into the main question you asked.
Okay.
You see, one of the things that is very obvious from that video and that we've been seeing over time is a very high level of indiscipline and a lack of decorum on the part of these civil servants. I think it's something we've been seeing. It has been a trend, and I think the civil service and the heads of civil service, the head of service needs to look at such things. The civil service is a system whereby you have people who are trained to have decorum, to be much more composed, to be not to be expressing this kind of emotions and dancing around. No, that is not what civil service is all about. So for me, I think it's a gross display of insubordination and indiscipline on the part of all of this people that are. And if I were to have any kind of a position, I think some of these people should be queried for these actions they put up. It is not in their place to put up such display that like we see. Now, having said that, I would want to look at the Minister of Women Affairs. I think part of the reasons why you have maybe such reactions as civil servants, they maybe react in favor or against, is essentially, if you understand how the civil service operates, is essentially because if civil servants don't have their ways with a minister, they're going to have issues. We have seen it with David Umahi when he first got into the ministry, and he ran into trouble waters with the ministry staffs, and somehow he had to kind of reverse in the trajectory he was going. So you must, as a minister, identify how you want to approach the people, and it comes to what I said about understanding the terrain of people you are dealing with. There are procedures in the civil service of how to treat and how to deal with civil servants. There are procedures of how your memos are approved and the stages also. There are procedures also about policies and policy implementation and getting the job done. The question is, the civil servants in this ministry, have they done what the minister wanted them to do? Has the minister implemented the policies of the government? Has the minister pushed things that they do not want to push? I have seen a number of videos, maybe 1 or 2 videos, where the minister appeared at an event and queried the nature of, or the composition of that event.
All right, we seem to be having
and saying that event did not meet up with what she had approved.
Okay.
Now, some civil servants don't like this because these are where the benefits from. You know, you are not hearing me clearly?
We were losing
Hello? Am I
some
still
of
there?
your words.
Yeah,
yes, you're still here, but we're losing some of your words. But feel free to go ahead.
Okay.
I think it's better
so
now.
What I was saying is that the minister must have run into troubled waters where they've been running before, or maybe the minister was just high-handed. And either way, it does not justify what we see in this video. Civil servants are not wired, are not designed to function like that.
Don't you think civil
and
servants
I think
are the
the
problem
appropriate
here?
authorities should look into this.
Sorry, permit me to butt in at this point. Don't you think civil servants are the problem? Because David Umahi's case that you mentioned, one of the reasons he was trying to go hard on them was because they came late to work. They came late. They were not at work when they were supposed to be. And that is insubordination. But then he was frustrated to the point where he had to, find a common ground, almost apologizing because he was, locked in or locked out, as the case may be. So what should be done to civil servants now to ensure that they allow the work to go smoothly?
Exactly my point. You see, when you are appointed to a position, you must have the necessary backing to get the job done. I do not see anybody putting up such action with a wiki in Federal Capital Ministry. Nobody would dare to do that. I do not see anybody put up such an action with an El-Rufai as a minister in any ministry. So the point I'm making is that, yes, civil servants will want to push their way and have their way because they've been used to some kind of ways they do things. But if, as a minister, you know what you are doing and you put your foot down, then things will be done the way you want it. Civil servants generally do not want any minister that was going to come to change the ways they do things. They believe that they know the procedure, and these are the procedures that are now working. The whole idea of having a minister in place is to come and fix the problem within the system. But they do not want that, and you must be such that you have a character of putting your foot on the ground and getting the job done.
All right, Mr. Badamosi, let me stay with you. You said something about somebody like Nyesom Wike not taking that, from anybody in the Federal Capital Territory. Is that some kind of approval of his conduct that we have seen over time?
Well, his conduct in terms of getting the job done, yes, because if you are minister of Federal Capital Territory, all staffs of the Federal Capital Territory are answerable to you. The buck stops on your table. So everybody within the ministry must align with the policy and programs you are implementing. The very instance anybody starts showing a dissenting voice or starts showing a dissenting disposition, it means that they are not ready to work with you. And the best thing to do is to show them the way out. So for me, in that wise, I think for me is an approval of the way the minister gets his job done. He knows what he wants, and he knows how to get it done.
People and making them actually fear them, when gagging the people for them not to be able to express themselves. We've seen the minister of FCT. There's a recent video about how he went to inspect the site and how he was telling people to shut up and even trying or threatening to get in physical. Will you also applaud that, to be aware of the minister knowing how to do his job done in this present time?
No, we're talking about civil servants here. We're talking about getting the job done. We're talking about people who hold you a duty to execute your program and policies. I'm not talking about what you go out to do and maybe some of the shenanigans we see in terms of political activities that we see around. But for me, anybody who is what is sought as a political appointee must have the capacity to get his subordinate within the office to get his job done without having anything that rocks the boat like we see in the Ministry of Women Affairs. I think what has happened in the Ministry of Women Affairs, and for me, I think importantly, the reason why maybe the president took the minister out was because of the fact that she was not making a headway with the ministry staffs who were there. They seemed quite obviously not cooperating with her, and there was no way she could function.
Okay, I would have loved you to. Well, I was coming.
No, let me just react to what you said.
Go ahead.
You see, it's not even peculiar to this ministry. If you recall, when the current IG was nominated to replace the former IG, they came with drummers to usher him to the office and denigrating the previous IG and singing praises of this Egbetokun. If you recall, people in uniform that are supposed to be more disciplined than the civil servants. So it's a recurring thing. We are only seeing this because somebody recorded and posted it online. Now, civil service became another thing entirely when Babangida came. He politicized civil service, and this is the result we are getting today. When he said anybody can be DG from level 10. So civil servants, rather than do the job, they now have to align themselves with politics and politicians. You imagine a level 10 officer that is answerable to a level 15, 16 officer, suddenly becoming Director General and becoming the boss of that level 16 officer, who ordinarily should count his days of becoming a permanent secretary. And that was how Babangida dealt with civil service. Now, the question and the result is what we are getting today.
The question I was going to ask you is,
whatever happened in that video is gross insubordination.
Okay, the question I was going to ask you actually, in line with this, staying with Uju Ohanenye, is it? Don't you think she stepped on toes? If you recall, there was a time she spoke up against the marrying of 100 minors, in quote now, in the north, and when conversation went round, she later apologized for speaking against it. Don't you think she probably stepped on toes, and that led to her being shown the way out?
You see, if you are appointed into office, you have two choices. Either to do the job or toe the line of political correctness. Okay? The problem is, if you are coming from private sector background and you find yourself in public service, you are not likely to be in sync.
Now, in a situation like this,
for me, if I were to find myself in that office,
do the job, people that tend to want to do the job are frustrated and then shown the way out. How then will the job be done?
You see, civil service is structured and there are laid down rules. If there is any infraction, that you have punishment that is commensurate with such infraction.
Okay.
But when you now begin to play politics in the civil service, then there is a major problem. Do you know that today civil servants are more corrupt than politicians?
Well, that's what you're saying.
I know.
Okay.
Because go to Abuja. I've lived in Abuja. I've worked in Abuja. Most of those abandoned estates are owned by directors. And the salary of a director is not even up to ₦1 million.
All right, then. Well, let's give you the opportunity to have your parting shots before we move into another conversation now. So, Dele, let's have your parting shot on this one. Your concluding thoughts on this one.
Corruption is encircling Nigeria, and the earlier we take it out, the better for us.
All right, then. Ishaka, please, let's have your parting shots as well. If you keep it short, we'll really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. I think my parting shot would be to advise the president to restore back the Ministry of Humanitarian, Ministry of Niger Delta, and then let the commissions function under the presidency. I think that would be the best way to go.
All right, then. Thank you very much. But do stay with us as we get into another conversation. Nigerians are reacting as President Tinubu denies speculations on Reno Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode's ministerial nomination. Well, I wonder who thought they would be giving appointments in the first place. But I guess that was trending on social media, so we'll talk about this one in a bit.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. In a surprising political twist, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has denied reports suggesting the appointment of prominent political figures Reno Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode as ministers in his administration. This announcement has sparked mixed reactions across Nigeria, with public and political commentators sharing differing views. Both Omokri, a former aide to ex-President Goodluck Jonathan, and Femi Fani-Kayode, a former Minister of Aviation and key supporter of Tinubu during the 2023 elections, are well-known figures in Nigeria's political landscape. Rumors of their potential appointments had ignited intense debate, but the Tinubu administration has now swiftly dismissed these speculations, prompting further discussions on the reasons behind the decision. Political analysts have offered different views, with some seeing it as a strategic move by Tinubu to distance himself from controversial figures, while others suggest it could be an effort to maintain balance within his cabinet. Reactions have also poured in on social media, with supporters of both Omokri and Fani-Kayode expressing disappointment, while some critics welcomed the move as a step towards a more inclusive government. We still have in the studio with us Dele Fanimo and virtually Mr. Isiaka Badamosi. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. Now, Dele, let me ask you, did you expect that the president will appoint an Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode into his cabinet?
On the pedestal of political advantage and settling the good boy, you may want to appoint.
Settling who is a good boy, if I may ask?
The good boys.
All right.
That had worked for me, that had stayed on despite all odds. Yes. And for Tinubu to take on critics, you might want to take either of them, probably as the Minister of Information, because Idris is not doing as much as he should do right now in propagating the good works of the government.
Do you think that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will trust a Reno Omokri who went to England and mounted a campaign against him? A Femi Fani-Kayode who has on several occasions shredded the president. Do you think that the president will be so naive, so to say, to have any of them in his cabinet? I think, shouldn't there be a question of trust?
Maybe you don't know the capacity of the president to absorb some of these things. Tinubu is somebody that, no matter how viral you go against him, if he finds the need to use you for a particular purpose, it may not be dignifying.
Is there any point that comes to mind immediately? Anyone that has shredded him before and he's accommodated the person into either his cabinet or one form of appointment or the other?
He may not have appointed, but do you know that Pedro, his deputy governor, had a brush with him towards the end of the administration, and the man was impeached. But now, before this election, when Pedro came back to him, and he was part of the campaign team.
Did he get any appointment?
He didn't get any appointment. What I'm telling you is that the man has a capacity of using you for a purpose. At a later day, Pedro could get an appointment.
Okay.
You understand? But what I'm telling you is that he doesn't fight with his two eyes closed, Tinubu, when it comes to politics. Aregbesola, as we speak now, has been making moves to reconcile with Tinubu.
I think reconciliation is a different thing altogether.
Wait, the moment you reconcile with him, if he finds a need for you to be used, he will use you.
So all this while, he hasn't found the need to use any of these people.
Who are these people you are
like Arebe Shola, like Pedro that he talked, like Femi Fani-Kayode, or even Reno Omokri, and a whole lot of people that parted ways with him in the past.
If there is need, he would use.
That's the question I'm asking.
You understand?
There's been no need.
For now, there is no need.
All right.
But let me also tell you, Fani-Kayode and Omokri, they are not, do I want to call them politicians? They are just people that happen on the political firmament by accident.
You mean the former Minister of Aviation happens to be on a political government for
You see,
accident?
Fani-Kayode does not play politics the way a politician will play it. He rests with where his bread will be buttered most of the time.
So that's interest. But you know that politics is a game of interest. So
what I'm saying
take away his
is,
interest,
there are some things you do in politics, even when you say there is no morality in politics. But there's an extent to go in politics that people call to question your integrity.
All right.
You understand?
It's okay. Now, Mr. Isaka Bedemosi, I would like to ask you this. Looking at some people's opinion, they said maybe to balance the cabinet, to balance the equation so that no party or nobody will be left out, the president might consider picking Reno Omokili or Femi Fani-Kayode to be part of his cabinet. Do you also think that the president can be that benevolent to that point?
Okay, benevolent, I don't think the president will be benevolent, no. I think the president will look at who is relevant to what he wants them for. But I would say that I would want to also say that I am a bit surprised that Femi Fani-Kayode has not found space in the cabinet of the president as it is today, because he was in the trenches with him throughout the elections and all of that, and he has been a party man, and he has stood by. And I think the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs a Fani-Kayode because of what he brings to the table. For me, you see, each and every one of this, the two of them, Reno Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode, are two of a kind, but they have their uniqueness in different ways. Okay, so, and Reno Omokri is a PDP member. So if you want to bring him into the cabinet, you want to justify why. Does he have any special qualities that he wants to bring to the table? Which for me, I do not really see any special quality he has that is not already available within the APC, or that Fani-Kayode does not bring to the table much more than he does. So I would expect that someday the president would give a consideration, because in politics, I must tell you, in politics, people look at what is your relevance, what can you bring, what can you really do, and somebody like a Fani-Kayode is somebody who could be aggressive when you need him to be, is somebody who could be really forceful when you require him to be. And I think you need something like that. That might not be appropriate for the Ministry of Information, because Ministry of Information for me is a government bureaucracy, is a government office that needs to showcase the activity of government. So you might not need somebody who is really that forceful and pushful, but more of a much more diplomatic and much more tactful person. But if you are looking at somebody who would be really pushy, and who other people from outside will see as somebody who they cannot toil with, I think if Fani-Kayode would make that position much more better.
Mr. Isiaka, I think let me take you on two issues now. The one of trust first. Do you think that the president will trust Reno Omokri enough to have him around him? Because, like I asked Dele here, this man mounted a campaign against the president in the UK. It's all over the social media. If you go to X, you'll find it. And there is nothing unprintable that Femi Fani-Kayode has not said about the president. Is the president so forgiving that he will still take them in? That is on one side. On the other side, you talk about relevance and the ability of one to push. Is there anything that Femi Fani-Kayode can push that Bayo Ononuga has not done in the past? Looking away from spotlighting the achievements of his president and attacking perceived opponents of the administration. I want you to talk more about the issue of relevance of Femi Fani-Kayode?
Okay, you see, Bayo Onanuga and Femi Fani-Kayode are of two different modes. Bayo Onanuga has been a journalist for over 3 decades, if I'm not mistaken now. And he knows the job. This is what he does.
He knows the job?
Femi Fani-Kayode is a politician out and out, and that he has shown in the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo. He has shown as a spokesperson for the president and all of that. So, and for me, I think to say the president talk about whether be forgiving or not with regards to what has been done by Reno Omokri and Femi Fani-Kayode, what they spoke about him in the past. See, in politics, at most times in politics, political sins are never forgiven. That is the truth about it. But the important thing that politicians do is, even if you are an act enemy and they know that you can do this job for them, they need you for this purpose, they will bring you in. And besides, I want to say that Reno Omokri at that time was and up to today a PDP member, and they were both pushing for the success of their party. So there is nothing that Reno Omokri had said in the past that were not said about Goodluck Jonathan against during the campaign against him in the presidential election between Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan. So those are not the issue for me. The issue is the president will look at who is far more relevant to what I want today. And I will tell you that Bayo Onanuga is a different mode completely. Femi Fani-Kayode is a different mode altogether.
All right, now, why we ask this question is the fact that it has actually made it to the social media. Nigerians are talking. But though the presidents come up to deny this, they deny this report that said the appointment of these people actually have not really made it to their table. But sometimes you hear something and then boom, it will happen. Now, I'll ask again, do you think it is going to get to that point, just like Mr. Delefanimo said, that maybe this rejigging or the reshufflement that we made in the cabinet is more like it's coming in phase? So are we expecting something like this in the second phase?
Well, I would say I am expecting, because both of them have been on the side of this government, and especially Reno Omokri. Reno Omokri has been pushing a very strong position in favor of this government, and if anything at all, I would expect something to come true for either of them anytime soon. The president will definitely find something for them to do. I'm sure of that within maybe the next possible few months or thereabout.
All right, let's bring it back to the studio. Mr. Fanimo, do you think that the considerations about, or what Femi Fani-Kayode and Reno Omokri are doing, turncoats, some people would say, is because of stomach infrastructure? Is it because they are jobless or what?
They are not jobless. But the point is, you need political relevance at all times. Once you are off the radar, people tend to forget you.
Political relevance, even if you have to go against your party position and all of that. Like Isiaka said, Reno remains a member of the PDP.
But that does not preclude him supporting a government that he feels is doing well.
And still remains in his party.
Of course. Wike is still in
So does this speak to him not having any... If the PDP had won the election, do you see a Reno Omokri coming to attack a sitting Atiku Abubakar?
He could, and he may not.
Has he done it before?
No, I'm just telling you that he could, and he may not. In this instance, you can't foreclose what he would do, given that circumstance that you have just painted. What we are saying is, these people, most politicians look after their own interests. And where the interest is better served is where they pitch their tent.
What kind of interest? Is it the stomach interest or what? That's what we want to find out.
It has to do with relevance. It has to do with exposure. It has to do with what we call stomach interest. Because a politician needs money at all times to oil his machinery. So anything that would deny him that opportunity, because in their own small enclave, these people, they have their own structure. that they have to maintain.
When you have talked about stomach interest, do you think that the president will clearly take any of these two people? Because if peradventure he loses 2027, that these same people will not abandon him and jump into a new ship.
That is not new to Tinubu. He has had to contend with such attitude in the past. And so he has developed immunity to such. Obanikoro did it to him. Pedro did it to him. Kofo Bokno did it to him. Banire did it to him. And on like that. So some of them are back in the fold today.
All right. Then.
So he's not somebody that closes his two eyes to fight.
All right then. Well, I would rather, let me come to Isiaka Gbadamosi now, but I would rather move away from, these two individuals. My personal opinion, I'll put aside, yes. Now, let's move away from who he may add to the cabinet and look at who he may have to let go from the cabinet. Coming back to this conversation, Nyesom Wike, who is basically 1 foot in the PDP and his fingers in the APC, or basically his feet in the PDP, hands in the APC, going about town. We had a conversation earlier in the day, just before we got into, we got you on board, where Nyesom Wike was speaking to residents of the FCT, and he made some display, spoke to people in what I would call an uncouth manner. And some Nigerians have spoken about the possibility of this individual with some, outburst and the way and manner in which he speaks, retaining that position, a sensitive position within the political space. Being the FCT minister, that, of course, is a sensitive position. Do you think that there might be some sort of pressure on the presidency to the point where the presidency might have to ease Wike out of office? Or will the president be more concerned about his political interest?
Okay. Former Governor Nyesom Wike and FCT minister is a person that is well known to most political actors within this country today. We know his character, we know the way he behaves attitudinally, his outburst and all of that. We have a clear understanding of it. And I am sure that the president also has a very good understanding of a Nyesom Wike in terms of his temperament and how he behaves. Now, the president would have gotten a lot of pressure on taking him out of the office. He must have gotten a lot. In fact, I do know that when he was initially appointed, there were some forces that fought tooth and nail to insist that no, somebody like himself cannot be Minister of FCT. But for me, it is one appointment I credit this government for. And what is my reason? My reason is simply that there is no exclusivity for any appointment. As far as you are a Nigerian, you are entitled to be appointed to any office in this country. So one office should not be exclusively for some people and I think that the president has made that clear in his appointment to the FCT. The other thing I want to also highlight is the fact that the president has supported him because he knows that Nyesom Wike will deliver on the job, and he's delivering on the job. So far, so good for me. He's one of the ministers that has performed despite all the chaos and all the crisis that's going on in Rivers State and that he has immersed himself into. He still is performing in FCT and getting the job done. And one of the other important part of it is that the president would not let go of a Nyesom Wike, essentially because Nyesom Wike is a force to be reckoned with in the South. And the president will be looking at 2027 and will be looking at somebody who is a linchpin he could use to ensure that he gets the South and Rivers State on board, just like he got it the last time in the last election. So letting him go or easing him out, I do not see it happening anytime soon.
All right.
For me, I think it's all the way for Nyesom Wike.
All right. Mr. Isiaka, you said something about the pressure on the president. I want us to look at the personality of the president. The president has this larger-than-life personality. You know, if you look at what happened in 2023, in the lead-up to the election, we had a president, a former president, who clearly did not support his ambition. I'm talking of the person of Muhammadu Buhari. President Obasanjo was clearly, you know, against him. And there was this gang of Buhari, President Obasanjo wanted to, or was working in cahoots with Babangida, Abdusalami, and all of that. If you take these people away from the equation, which Nigerian do you think has the capacity to put pressure on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Well, you are talking about individuals, as it were. There are interests. They might not be individual per se. They might just be, it could be religious interest, it could be ethnic interest, it could be, and they are very powerful. They are very, very powerful. It could be business interest.
Is it possible you mention any of this? Is it possible you mention any of this interest? We just want to know, because the issue about pressure on him to remove Wike or to do this, you know, the thing keeps resonating. So Nigerians would like to know who has this handle on the president to put pressure on him to do what he doesn't want to do. At least he must be listening to one person or group of people or the other. Can we, by your imagination, know any of these persons or these groups?
No, just like I said earlier, it's not necessarily an individual. You see, one of the things that we, just like we talked about the oil industry issue all over the place. These interests are such. Take for example the position of the federal Minister of Federal Capital Territory. That position has become more like a position that is perpetually for the northern part of this country. And when when Wike was appointed, a number of such interests rose and fought. They fought on the religious part. They insisted, no, this is not the religion of this person doesn't tangle with what we want. They fought on the part of it's not from this, it's from the south side, it's not from this part of the country, and all of that. So there are all of these interests. It's not necessarily an individual per se. There are individuals that wield a lot of influence. Yes, Obasanjo, Goodluck Jonathan, and all of that. Yes, but to the extent of having an individual like Wike removed from the cabinet, I think the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, can see through that clearly. And I'm sure he is clear about what he wants. And Wike, for now, serve his purpose.
Well, it looks like the president is not bound to any of these pressures, because despite the pressure, Wike has remained there. Despite the pressure,
yes,
when he moved the offices of the CBN and the NPA to Lagos State, there was pressure on him, and he didn't bow. More like that speaks about the personality of the president, as one who always has his way. I think we'll bring it back to the studio now. Mr. Adelefanimo, yes. Do you think there's anybody that can put pressure on the president?
Of course, there are groups that could put pressure on him, but if it's clearly something that will go against his interest, he will not bow down to them. The president, having been in politics for over 35 years now, should know when to apply the brakes and when to continue in the journey, in any trajectory he wants to follow. So to that extent, there will be pressure, but it is still within his powers to decide either to bow, acquiesce, or to resist such pressure.
Is there any instance you can mention where he bowed to pressure?
I can't readily mention one particularly now.
This group you're talking about, Mr. Fanimo, is it an international group or a national group, you know, for clarity purpose?
You see, let me tell you something. It's just a perception. I am not sure.
Very okay. That's okay.
I'm not sure.
Have your opinion.
It's just my opinion.
Yes, that's fine.
I have a feeling, and that feeling had been there for quite a while, that those who determine who becomes a president in Nigeria are 75% non-Nigerians.
Okay.
Because of vested interest, particularly in the oil industry. No sane IOC would want a president that would put a break to what they do, the IOCs. And by extension, these IOCs are like representative of their governments.
Is it the legal things they do or the illegal activities?
But unfortunately, they don't help in casting votes. So how do we solve this problem? Seeing that it's still Nigerians.
They influence the voting pattern. Okay, let's look at this. Why would a presidential candidate rush to Chatham House? Is Chatham House Nigeria? Look at the trend since Obasanjo. They rush to Chatham House to campaign, and they are not here in Nigeria. What does that send? What signal is that sending to you? To tell you that these people, they also have some measure of influence in what goes on in the country. We are independent on paper, but indeed we are not. That's what it tells you. Up to today, the only person that wanted to do it, what Aramco did that everybody was clapping for Aramco, Kupolokun wanted to do it in Nigeria. The first day he made an allusion to that, acquiring technology that will make Nigerians know real time if a liter of crude is extracted from the littoral waters of Nigeria. He wanted to install that equipment, but it was stopped. It was removed less than 15 days after that allusion. So you think some people are not behind that? So for me, it goes beyond what we see. And so those ones, they can be influential to what if IMF and World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions, are influential to the emergence of a president, and you think that person will come around? And we have heard cases of CIA instigating coup in Africa. So there could be external influence that are stronger than the internal influence we have here. That's my opinion. That's where I see it.
All right then. All right then. Thank you very much for your opinion. Well, I must say a very big thank you to you, gentlemen. If you have parting shots, let's have them. Less than a minute, please. Concluding thoughts for today. You could merge both.
Let the president be his own man to ensure that he does what would resonate in the hearts of the masses of this country.
A lot of Nigerians will say he's always been his own man, and he he manages things in that manner. All right, Isiaka Gbadamosi, let's have your concluding thoughts as well. All right, we would like for you to unmute your microphone because we can't hear you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Oh, well, what I was saying is that the president needs to address the issue of...
I beg your pardon? We're losing your audio there. You might need to take that again.
For me, I think the pace of work is rather slow. Nigeria has to be done a lot more faster to get to... The president needs to address the situation in Nigeria, the poverty, the hunger, and all of that, such that Nigerians can feel the impact of governance and government within their system. The issue of the oil industry needs to be addressed. So much is being happening under the carpet. The president needs to address the issue of power, the power sector. And for me, I think the power minister is I don't know why, but I look forward to maybe something better coming in the future. Thank you.
Okay, well, we lost part of what you said there, but I think you said something about the power minister being retained and you not knowing why, if I'm not mistaken. All right, we're having audio problems, network problem there, but we must say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi. Thanks for coming on the program. He is a public affairs analyst and an SDG advocate. Thank you very much once again. And also big thanks to Mr. Dele Fanimo, a seasoned reporter and VOP in-house analyst. Thank you once again for being with us on the program. Well, that's it on the show today. Stick around. Multicam at 9 o'clock, newspaper review. Chukwuma Okoro and I will be going deep into the newspapers, looking at stories that made it to the cover pages of the head of the dailies. Well, on behalf of my colleagues, Chukwuma Okoro, Fina Okechukwu, and also our backroom staff, I am Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day. Bye for now.